Okay, what I'll do is go through how to start populating a row once you've identified your hazards. Probably won't go through an entire row. I'll get to the point where we've got to a risk rating and then I'll cover the rest in another video. I've already done some of it, so I'll talk you through it. So the hazard that we're going to do is an improperly set up workstation. If you remember, the task being assessed was inputting data at a computer workstation. So who might be harmed? I've put people whose work duties involve the use of DSE and people who work with DSE from home. So those people kind of need to be given consideration even more these days because more people are working from home these days. Try to avoid putting things like all staff in this box. Just try and demonstrate that you've given it a little bit of thought. In terms of how might people be harmed, we've got musculoskeletal disorders such as lower back pain and work-related upper limb disorders, visual fatigue and mental stress. That type of information in terms of how people can be harmed, the types of harm that can occur, you'll find that in module 5, understanding hazards. In this case, obviously it's computer workstations, and you've got the information on the types of harm. So these two boxes hopefully are fairly straightforward. Who might be harmed? How might people be harmed? Existing control measures, obviously, just go ahead and list whatever control measures you've already got in place. So for this, I've put all DSE users are provided with checklist to assess their own workstations or stations. If they're working from home as well, they might have one workstation in their office at work and then another workstation at home. Both will need to be independently assessed. That's the only control measure I've got in. That's what I'm imagining. In my mind, I'm kind of imagining that all DSE users are just handed this checklist and basically told to get on with it. So no other control measures apart from that. Obviously for you, it'll be your workplace, it'll be different. So go by what you've currently got in place. And then the risk rating. The L stands for likelihood, the C stands for consequence, and the R stands for rating or risk or risk rating, whatever. To get this, what you do is go to the relevant section of the course, which is 5 steps to risk assessment, evaluating the risk. The terminology is slightly different on this that you can see here. It's got severity of harm, which is the same as consequence, and likelihood of harm. And what you're doing is you're basically giving a numerical value based on the control measures that you've got in place. So for example, let's get this back up. I'll do consequence first actually rather than likelihood. So severity of harm. And it's basically slight harm, minor harm, medium harm, major or fatal, and some brief descriptors there. So I think for work-related upper limb disorders and lower back pain, visual fatigue, mental stress, that type of thing, I'm going to put maybe medium harm, put 3. So in which case you'd put 3 in the box. And then for likelihood, so this is, as I said, based on the control measures that you've got in place. How likely is it that that harm will come to pass? If you've got some controls in place, but you're not doing everything that you could do, but you've got something's better than nothing. Go with what you think is most reasonable. I'd say again maybe 2 or 3. And then all you do is simply multiply them together. So 2 multiplied by 3 is 6. And then you've got your risk rating. And then your risk rating, before you've put any additional control measures in place, what a lot of places do is they'll have a sort of a color coded system. So obviously anything that's sort of 4 and below would be okay. You don't really need to do anything other than monitor the control measures you've already got in place. If it's in the sort of yellow or amber zone, then you need to look at maybe doing a little bit more to bring the level of risk down. And if it's obviously in the red, 15 or above, then you need to consider stopping that work activity until you can get the risk under control. So in this case, what did we say? It's 6. So we can look at putting further control measures in place to bring the level of risk down somewhat. We'll discuss additional control measures and the new risk rating and the rest of it in the next video.